Yeah, one of the things about being spiritual, or I don't know that religious, I wouldn't put like just because you're religious, I don't think that you get this what I'm going to say, but like if you have that connection with whatever you call it, source, God, whomever or whatever it is that you're connected to, it seems that so much of the challenges or the things that people would normally get caught up and hung up on don't seem to matter as much, right? If but
Mhm.
it's only if you have that faith, right? And that faith is like such a loaded word, but that's really, I think, what it comes down to is this deep knowing that, and anything that I'm going to say after that is like, again, it's loaded. It's like secure,
Mhm.
safe, or like whatever. But I think that's so critical for men today because of how things are changing and the economy and the politics and society. And you pick an alley on social media or pick a section of the internet. And there's so many things to sort of be worried about or have anxiety. I've found that like I've gone through some shit and I'm like, wow, you dude, like you didn't like lose it. Like it would have been very reasonable for you to like have lost it and like lost control or like given in. And it's like I think back and I'm like, oh, how did I keep my sanity? And it was like, oh yeah, thankfully I had like a deep connection to source, God, like whoever, and I was able to lean into that when shit got really hairy. But if I didn't have that, like I don't know what the response would be. Like I don't know, but thankfully that was there. And I'm scared for guys who are sort of my age and come up with like it was sort of like hip to be an atheist when we were growing up. Like that was like the in thing to be.
Mhm.
That is a scary place or like a scary mindset to have these days.
Mhm. I mean, yeah, just to think it's the world revolves around you and you earning income or status, and there's no higher power. There's nothing bringing you through this, and you're just gone. I know there's a lot of things that, again, loaded questions, loaded statements, but there's a lot of uncertainty, right? And so I feel like when you have a purpose and you look at the bigger picture and you look at that it's more than just about you, and especially me personally being a Jesus guy, when I'm like, hey, this is just a little blip of 100 years of my life as opposed to eternity. Like, what am I living for? Am I living for this 100 years on earth or for eternity? Am I trying to stock up more like in stocks in my wealth, or am I trying to change more lives? Right. And so I think when you have that higher purpose, that higher power, that higher meaning in life and purpose, it's a lot of the stuff that would rattle you and worry you. You're like, that's not a big deal. We're going to get through this. I'm going to get through this for sure. So I do think that's part of being a modern masculine man, is having that kind of that North Star, if you will, that keeps you grounded through the ups and downs.
Yeah, I remember I was most of my identity growing up and prior to graduating high school being an athlete, and I didn't know that I was going to turn out 5'6" and like struggling to get over 160 pounds. But I remember seeing like successful athletes saying, I give all glory to God. Tim Tebow was like one of the guys growing up, and he was big in college when I was sort of playing football and all that. So he was someone that we looked up to. And I remember thinking like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck does God have to do with you throwing a touchdown? Like, I'm like, it doesn't, like, it didn't equate in my head. And it's not that it like pushed me away, but I was like, it's fucking stupid. Like, it's just so misguided. Not realizing that, like, no, actually, I was so misguided. And it was only when I had kids and started to realize, like, oh no, like, how selfish was I actually being? How self centered and conceited was I actually being to think that I have control? I'm not in control. Like, I thought I was in control of everything, that I can, that I'm this, I don't know. And I was just so misinformed. And it sort of took me like, life falling apart, marriage falling apart, like all that sort of stuff to bring me to my knees and bring me back to this point of sort of, again, salvation is like a big word, but it was like, man, like it did. It was like, it was a sort of a redemption. And again, that's another fucking loaded word. I can't think of anything else that properly describes that experience of being hopeless and despair. And the only solution was like getting connected to God, source, like Jesus, people, whatever you want to call it. I think it's critical for guys because without that North Star, like where do they end up? They're going to end up out in the middle of the ocean. And it's critical for guys at this time.
I do find that we're all searching for it. And I think a lot of guys, especially, we put so much pride in our title and our accolades and how we look. And we think that's what being a man is. And it's being ripped and having all the girls and having all the money, but it's so fleeting. And when you get there, or when you're experiencing it, you're like, okay, well, I just want a little more. It's pleasurable for the moment, but like, this isn't real, like long lasting. And so I find that we're all trying to fill that hole, as I say, God shaped hole in your heart with other things. And until you actually find that connection, it is fleeting and it's not enough. And it's why you see all these people who are rich and famous and wealthy and popular and all that they end up committing suicide or overdosing. And so I actually found myself in my 30s because I was grinding it out because work was my idol. I would come home and I'd numb myself with a weed gummy or a couple drinks. And I would just go, well, I deserve to relax and I need to turn off this work brain. And so that was a good decade of just doing that most nights of the week until my wife started calling me out a little bit. And I was justifying that I wanted to be present. And really, I was just numbing myself. And I wasn't going to, like for me, I just switch it to going to prayer or going to worship or changing my mentality to where it wasn't a cool 5 or 6 o'clock. I'm going to turn off my work brain with a weed gummy or some drinks, but hey, I'm going to be present with the family, or I'm going to switch my mind to some worship music and be more present and surrendering, like whatever else I have to do throughout the day, whatever didn't get done, doesn't matter. I'm going to be there with my family. I'm not just going to veg out and numb out on the couch and say I'm being present. And so that was a big switch a few years ago that one of my mentors at church who really challenged me on, and I finally submitted to it. And it's been a huge, refreshing, just moments in my life now for these last few years. But I think we're all trying to find ways to cope with going through the ups and downs, making sense of it, trying to build our own kingdom. And it just doesn't work.